James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I would like to take a call in relation to vote finance appropriations initially. So I just wanted to agree with some of the comments that was made by Grant Robertson earlier in the evening, where he said that his sense was that looking at the appropriations that it demonstrates really a lack of vision on behalf of the government in relation to how to create a sustainable long-term economy. When this government was campaigning for office in the mid to late 2000s, they talked about trying to create an economy that was built on savings and investment rather than debt and consumption and spending. And what has happened is that over the course of this government, the economy has actually become more about speculation than productive investment over the course of this government, despite a number of things that the government has been spending money on to try and nudge it in a different direction. One of these, an example of this, is the research and development grants, which has kind of shuffled around money in terms of how we try and encourage innovation. And we did some research recently that showed that despite everything that the government's been doing in that area, that New Zealand's spending, not the government spending, but New Zealand's spending on research and development, on innovation, is about the same now as it was in 2008. In other words, we've been trying to do some different things, and yet getting nowhere, which, in my view, looks very similar to the government's approach on a number of things, on a number of fronts, which is to be seen to be doing something without actually doing anything at all. So there's been a real failure to diversify the economy, and this, of course, has led us very exposed. I also referenced the 13% fall in global dairy trade auction prices recently, which has left the economy very exposed. I just wanted to call out Stephen Joyce on this recently, who, when we questioned him in the House on the risk to the New Zealand economy of the fall in the dairy auction prices, said, "Oh, well, don't worry about it. Dairy is only 5% of our overall economy. It doesn't really matter." Of course, it might be 5% of the overall economy, but it's about 40% of our exports. And I completely agree with Todd McClay, who earlier said that we don't get wealthy by trading with ourselves. So, the fact that dairy is such a massive portion of our export market is really important. So when you say you try and minimise the fall in dairy prices on the basis of the overall economy rather than the trading economy, then that's been completely disingenuous. So when dairy struggles, so does the rest of New Zealand, because so much of the domestic economy is actually built around providing products and services to the dairy industry. The other thing that comment really showed is that a sort of a callous approach actually to a core National Party constituency, which is the rural and farming community, because the sheer numbers of farmers who are leveraged up to the hilt and past the hilt is now at the point where huge numbers of them are actually at risk, having gone through the process of making those conversions, that the price that they're getting at the gate means that they're barely covering the cost of production, let alone debt servicing. And I know that people say that or the government says that the price will recover fairly quickly, but actually there have been some big shifts in the global market. The Americans, for example, have changed the way that they subsidise their own farmers, which is encouraging huge amounts of production in the American market, causing a glut. And so, I think actually there is some risk that prices are going to stay low as they are, if not even lower, for quite some time. So this does present a real risk to our economy. Successive governments, not just this current government, but also previous governments, have failed to address property speculation, which has gotten worse and worse, to the point that since 2009, Auckland property prices are up 79%, which is pretty staggering. And I accept the government's argument that there is a supply-side problem. Obviously, people don't speculate when there's a glut, right? So they're speculating on the basis that there isn't that much supply. But it is also a demand-side problem. There is both a supply-side problem and a demand-side problem. And so you know, because of this government and previous...
The honourable